Shalom, family. Good to see you all here. Hope you're doing well. Hey, it turns out the Trump administration and his cabinet are a bunch of cowards. Yes, a bunch of cowards. I have never seen any other administration and their people running to military bases to live because they're scared. And you know why they're running there, y'all, because military bases got bunkers. So if these old cowards get scared enough, they can go run down into a bunker. Well, that's not it. And I think really what it is, y'all, it's a combination of things. I think it's what happened to Charlie Kirk. I think it's Three Eye Atlas. And I think, they're just scared. So they're giving their homes up and they're moving to military bases. Christy Nome was they said was one of the first people to do it, and it's going to be Marco Rubio, Stephen Miller, Pete Hegseth. All these people are cowards, y'all. At the end of the day, this is a cowardly move, in my opinion. They wanna talk all that loud mouth stuff, up at a mic, running their mouth, and at the end of the day, they're just a little coward running away from what they perceive as danger that nobody else sees. Either you're okay in your position or you're not. Obviously, you're not. So, if you're that deathly afraid that you gotta run to a military base, then maybe you shouldn't be in that position at all. I'm just saying. Y'all just look like a bunch of scared folks that don't know what to do with yourselves. Again, I never saw any previous administration doing some crap like this. You can't control what's happening. Y'all trying to control it, but you really technically can't control the things that are happening. And then on top of that, Donald Trump is messing with Venezuela, trying to get this country into another war. And a lot of people don't like it, claiming all these boats you're blowing up, these are people trafficking drugs, which I'm still convinced that is not the case. I just don't believe it. Again, who are the people that are in the boats that have a background in trafficking? You should be able to give names, and y'all are not giving a single name. Now, Donald Trump wants to do a ground invasion in Venezuela, and it may actually happen in the coming weeks. He wants to do a ground invasion and try to shut down, I guess, where they're making cocaine. But I never knew Venezuelans were known for making cocaine. But whatever. Whatever's going on, they are spooked for real. So let's get into these videos, y'all. Give me a one if you can see my screen. Thank you.
Trump officials moving to a military base residence. Why the fuck they do that? Please, somebody explain this to me. Like, why are people from the Trump administration moving in to military residence areas? Why? I don't understand why. Like, are they scared? Are they hiding from somebody? I would surely like to know.
We have some big news right now. The Atlantic is exclusively reporting that senior Trump administration officials are living on military housing, taking up housing from senior military leaders, and they're literally running out of housing because Trump administration officials, from Stephen Miller to Marco Rubio to others, are living on military housing, and it's unprecedented. There has never been so many administration officials living in these military housing. And the reason why is because they're fearful from protests and more. Previously, we knew that Kristi Noem was living in these military housing installations, but now Stephen Miller is, Marco Rubio is as well. There's no record of ever so many political appointees living in these military installations. It's literally being dubbed the, quote, unofficial green zone, according to The Atlantic, because of how many Trump officials there are living there. And you know who's paying for it? You, taxpayers. Spread the word, read the full article on The Atlantic's website, follow along stay up to date on all the news that you need to know about. I will have much more to come very soon.
When my mutual told me about this, I swear to God, I did not believe it. I had to search for it. I'm like, no, this could not be happening. Please share, save, engage, comment, get this out there. This needs to be out there. Post about it. Top Trump officials are moving onto military bases. They're taking the homes that previously housed senior officers on military bases, so-called for their protection and their security and their safety. These people include Marco Rubio, Stephen Miller, Kristi Noem, and others. What is going on? This is not normal behavior. Is this setting the stage for something greater to be happening in this country? We need to be watching for these type of things. Please share this information.
We have some major exclusive news breaking right now that you need to hear. The Atlantic is reporting that a significant number of senior Trump administration officials are living in military housing. This is causing a major issue, as they are reportedly taking up limited housing spaces that are designated for senior military leaders. According to the report, the military is now literally running out of housing for its own personnel because of this influx. So who is involved? The report specifically names senior official Stephen Miller and Senator Marco Rubio as occupants. It was previously known that Christine O'Malley was also living in these military installations, but this new report suggests the scale is far larger than anticipated. And the reason why this is happening? The Atlantic reports that these officials are fearful of protests and are seeking refuge in these secure locations. This situation is being called completely unprecedented. Sources cited in the article state that there is no record of so many political appointees ever moving into military installations like this. The situation has become so concentrated that, according to the Atlantic, the area is now being dubbed the, quote, unofficial green zone because of the number of Trump officials living there. And the final question, who is paying for this? You are, the taxpayers. Spread the word.
Well, I saw this and I just had to laugh. So Stephen Miller, Marco Rubio, Kristi Noem are living on base on a military installation guarded by military personnel because they are scared of the public. Now, I totally understand politicians being scared of the public when they are doing things that people don't like. Now, you can do things that people don't like and still be doing the right thing. Okay? Think of the representatives in Minnesota, I believe, that were killed. One was killed with her husband, and then another was critically injured because they were taking care of people. Okay? I can assure you 100% that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz received death threats galore during their campaign, and Kamala Harris while she was in office, right? Totally get it. Now, these people, this administration, are scared because they're doing evil things. The fact that they are living on military installations just goes to show you that they know that they're doing evil things, and they are getting extremely frightened of what is going to happen very soon if they continue doing these evil things. So we know Stephen Miller is the deputy chief of staff of the White House. He's really the one who's making the shots. He is an extremely racist, bigoted Nazi who is an absolutely horrid person. He is Trump's mouthpiece. He is Trump's PR person, and he quotes things from Joseph Goebbels, who was Hitler's PR guy. So this dude is just 100% evil, right? Now, we know who Kristi Noem is. She's the head of Department of Homeland Security. She's the one who's doing all the ICE raids. Now, it cracks me up because the United States military has many minorities, because the United States military preys on poor and poor people and minorities. Those don't always go hand in hand, but it's very common for those two things to go hand in hand. The military preys on those people to get them to join. There are a lot of them. It would not surprise me if there are military personnel who have family members who have been gathered up by ICE. Kristi Noem is the one who is telling them to do this. She is an evil person, okay? Now, Marco Rubio, you might not have heard too much about because he's not in the news as much as Miller or Kristi Noem, but he is our Secretary of State. He's the one who is handling all of the deportations. He is the one who is handling a lot of lockdowns as far as internationally and things like that. He has a lot of power as well. So these three people that are staying on base are terrorizing minorities the world over. All three of them are horrible people. All three of them are 100% stains on the earth. And pretty much the vast majority of people in this country would be better off if these three were not around. Okay? Now, it is an unfortunate statistic that a lot of shootings have been veterans. I really hate to say that, but the fact that these three think that they are safe on base, when a large percentage of shootings and other acts of, I hate to say it, terrorism in this country, of domestic terrorists, have been done by veterans who would probably have access to base anyway if they had a real inkling to do harm to these people. I'm not saying I do, even though I'm a veteran and everything else, but it's really interesting. I also find it interesting if these people were arrested for their crimes while on base. That would just crack me up if that happened. I do believe Pete Hegseth is also staying on a military installation as well. So, yeah, it's just the fact that they are running and hiding behind the military should tell you that they are absolutely frightened out of their minds. So what is happening with the things like No Kings protests and everything else is working. So keep it up, because they are scared shitless, and that's where we want them, because they're going to mess up. And when they mess up, that's when we can strike legally, civilly, and in a civilized manner that does not play into their playbook, okay? Because that's what they want. So keep it up, everybody. Keep on protesting. Keep on doing it in a civil manner. Do things like make videos and everything else. They're scared. They are scared out of their minds. So let's keep it up. Keep going.
When high-ranking officials start relocating to military bases, it's not a drill. It's about to hit the fan. Sources close to the Trump administration say key officials, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, have quietly relocated to military bases for their own safety. Officially, it's about civil unrest. Unofficially, it looks a lot more like they're posturing for a rapid pass to secure bunkers if things spiral out of control. So why the sudden fear? Could it be that millions of Americans are set to lose access to SNAP benefits tomorrow? That means no food money for families already stretched to the breaking point. When that happens, frustration turns to chaos fast. Even the possibility of protests, looting, and maybe even some burning cities. Sources inside the administration say it's preparing to declare a nationwide state of emergency if violence erupts. Quick reaction National Guard detachments are already being trained in every single state, and they could be mobilized in less than 60 days. And just when it couldn't get any stranger, President Trump confirmed plans to resume nuclear testing for the first time in 33 years. When pressed by reporters, he said it plainly. Yes, we're going to be conducting nuclear detonations. Now, this could be a coincidence, but when officials start moving to bases, the economy's collapsing and nuclear tests are back on the table, it might be time to ask what exactly they're preparing for.
Meanwhile, back in Washington, we talk about a sign of the times. Administration officials increasingly are facing so many very serious and violent threats that they find that the only option they have is to actually move their families and themselves onto military bases. Here's the list of some of the notable acts of political motivated violence. Of course, you had June 2022, the plot that was thwarted against Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. You had the Paul Pelosi was attacked in October of 2022. Obviously, you have the assassination attempts on President Trump, both of them. You have the arson at Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's home.
Yeah, and you have, of course, the Charlie Kirk assassination. And I think the Charlie Kirk assassination was such a shock to, especially to anybody who is in public life, that you could go with security to a university and simply have open debate, and you get shot in such a horrific way in front of college students. I'm still not over it. I'm just surprised how in the liberal media, it's just kind of just gone away. Here, a lot of conservatives, and of course at Fox News, we have not forgotten. We will not forget. But it has just gone off the pages like, oh, just another day. But the people who are not forgetting, especially, are those in the public eye. And so one of them is Stephen Miller. This is The Atlantic saying Stephen Miller joined a growing list of senior Trump administration and political appointees, at least 6 by our count, living in Washington area military housing, where they are shielded not just from potential violence, but also from protests. It is an ominous marker of the nation's polarization, to which the Trump administration has itself contributed. I don't know where they got that from, that some of those top public servants have felt a need to separate themselves from the public. These civilian officials can now depend on the U.S. military to augment their personal security. But so many have made the move that they are now straining the availability of housing for the nation's top uniformed officers. So The Atlantic really worried about housing for officers. They don't seem to care about the fact that military aren't getting paid during the shutdown, but okay.
So it's good on The Atlantic for pointing this out, but they do miss the point, Rachel. I mean, look, I cannot remember a time in my adult life that the threat of political violence was higher. And that is very sobering. And to see, we've had in the past some defense secretaries, Bob Gates, Jim Mattis, live on military bases. That's not unusual. But now with people like Stephen Miller moving into the military because of threats on his life, it is akin to, in 2023, the mayor of Tijuana had to move on to a Mexican military base because the cartel was openly saying, we are going to kill you. These are the threats that Stephen Miller and Katie Miller and their children are getting. And it's really a moment that seems unprecedented in terms of the political violence in our country.
I think the kid part is a really important point. I mean, I know Jen Hegseth and Pete Hegseth made that move onto the base. Kind of made sense. They're part of the military, but also the kind of freedom their kids can have from harassment and the safety they need now because of this very violent environment we're in.
Yeah, indeed. I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
Did you know that top Trump officials are now living on U.S. military bases? Yeah, civilian advisors living on U.S. United States military bases. They moved out of their Washington, D.C. homes to live on military bases. Why, you're probably asking? Let's break this all down. It all started after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and soon after that, protesters started targeting the White House advisor Stephen Miller and his wife Katie. Protesters then got outside his neighborhood in Virginia, said that he was like one of the mustache people, and now the Millers, alongside with at least 6 other top Trump officials, are quietly moving into secure military housing across Washington, D.C. These people include Kristi Noem, Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, and others. And these houses are usually reserved for generals. And so they were pushed out to put in these political appointees. And experts say that this is like the first time we've ever seen something like this. But the reason for all this is quite clear. The threats are escalating because after Charlie Kirk's death, we've seen the Trump administration label Antifa a domestic terrorist group, despite no legal framework on that label. And with ICE agents going through cities, with the National Guard going and being put into cities, and other things happening, including, well, a government shutdown, people losing SNAP benefits, people are getting angry of the people who are making the decisions. And look, in history, we have seen sometimes these figures go into these bases for a temporary thing, but now it looks permanent, which should show you something. That if your people are that angry with you, that you have to live full time at a military base, clearly you're doing something wrong. And there's more to this story. The Atlantic put out a great article called "The Top Trump Military Officials Are Moving into Military Bases." And I would suggest you read it. It is quite interesting. I'll be sure to keep you guys updated on this, though, so please do share my videos and follow me for more. Did you know that top Trump officials are now living on U.S. military bases? Yeah, civilian advisors living on U.S. United States. Please do share my videos and follow me for more.
Why are Trump officials moving into military bases? Why? The Atlantic reports senior Trump officials Stephen Miller and Marco Rubio have moved into military base housing in D.C. You know, the kind of historic homes that normally go to top uniformed officers, as they should. Just like, that's not a metaphor. Actual houses on Fort McNair's General's Row. And DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, remember her? She's been living rent-free in the Coast Guard Commandant's residence at Joint Base. Yeah, the Commandant's house, while the service scrambles to justify it. Even the Washington Post says insiders are not thrilled, and why would they be thrilled? Meanwhile, the Pentagon's running a barracks housing task force because troops are dealing with mold, broken plumbing, and shortages. So soldiers wait while political appointees get keys to the nicest places on bases. Also, remember the 136 or 7,000 in upgrades for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's official residence in Fort McNair. So the Army paid for it, raising a bit more transparency questions, don't you think? Just bottom line, when taxpayers pay for military housing and it becomes a refuge for politicians to avoid protests, is that supporting the troops? That's cutting the line. Who approved these moves? What's the rent? Is there rent? And who was supposed to get these homes? If you think military housing should prioritize military families, share this.
Yesterday afternoon, the Wall Street Journal reported that the Pentagon, the so-called Department of War, had, let me get the language right, had ordered forces to focus on, quote, rapid mobilization of troops against Americans. This comes the same day the president said the courts wouldn't stop him from using the Army, the Air Force, the Marines, the National Guard against Americans across the country. What in the hell is going on? And I guess I could ask, where's the Supreme Court right now? But where is the Senate? Where is the House on this?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think what we're experiencing under President Trump is one of the biggest reorientations of the U.S. military towards, obviously, our near abroad and what's happening in the Caribbean, but the use of force inside the United States. I mean, it is significant what we are seeing. And yesterday's announcement is just another piece of that, you know, standing up units that are going to focus on quelling unrest. Again, is something that, as someone who did 3 tours in Iraq and places abroad, served abroad, I've only seen this kind of thing in other countries. And we don't imagine that it would be happening here. But the president has really just a very fundamentally different view of how he should use people in uniform and federal law enforcement. And he's building units and reorienting away from things like China, by the way. I mean, the last segment, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that if we were healthy as a country, if Democrats and Republicans were disagreeing but doing it in a healthy, responsible way, we'd be focused on China and tech issues and how we're going to compete in the next 50 years. We'd be focused almost exclusively on that. But instead, the president has reoriented. He's rewriting all these strategies to focus on the homeland. Fine. That sounds fine on paper, but it's about using uniformed military inside the United States. Completely and fundamentally un-American in my mind.
In tonight's breaking story, a top general just exposed Donald Trump's unhinged new military move. That's right. Things continue to get more and more insane with Donald Trump's White House. How's it going, everybody? Hunter Avalone here with Occupy Democrats. Welcome back to another video. Now, Donald Trump is absolutely unhinged. For example, the way the economy is being run right now with the government shutdown and everything is absolutely unhinged.
A vote for Trump means your groceries will be cheaper.
$7 for 3 ears of corn. That just seemed twice as much as I've ever seen corn for anywhere.
My budget has become double for food shopping.
Parmesan cheese, it was $12.99 and now it's $16.99.
Especially the beef. Really? The beef. Yeah, everything is going up, but the beef is going up tremendously.
And the tariffs are paid by the consumer, okay? The companies pay it, but then they pass on the costs.
I don't think it's going to get any better soon.
Oh, yes, it's gotten ridiculous right there. It's kind of depressing to go in the Walmart. You used to go with $100 right there and come out with bags of groceries. Now you go with a couple of bags in your hand.
But prices will come down. You just watch. They'll come down, and they'll come down fast.
We didn't hurt anybody. We don't deserve this. What is distribution mean? It means a lot to me. It means the world to me what they're doing. Because sometimes you feel forgotten. You go to work to help people. That's our job, to help people. That's all we do. We go in every single day. This is day 28. The last paycheck we got was for 7 days to the end of September. That's it. So we've been there every single day. We've been there every single day. Who's thinking of us? We didn't hurt anybody. I promise you, we give our best. We have good people that go to work every single day to give their best. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and you thought that was bad. Donald Trump was so unhinged in this speech that even Newsmax had to cut away.
In some of the yards, we have some great yards. You know, the United States was #1 during World War II, #1 in the world in shipbuilding by far. We would produce a ship a day. Can you believe it? A ship a day. You know, freighters and this and that, but some big ones too, some great warships. And we just let that, our leadership, the person standing right where I am numerous years ago, a number of them, they just let it.
Good morning. You have been watching President Trump address business leaders there in Tokyo, Japan, live. It's just past 8 p.m. there.
And now a top general just exposed Donald Trump's unhinged military move. That's right. Take a look at tonight's top story.
The Iraq and Afghanistan forever wars pledged he'd never do the same. He's not saying he'll put boots on the ground in Venezuela, but there does a suggestion the U.S. may involve itself more militarily there and do it soon.
Yeah, it is strange because that was a pretty clear message being sent from his supporters. We don't want to be involved in everybody else's wars. We've got enough going on here. We don't need to be America or the world's policeman. General McCaffrey, though, it doesn't sound like that's what Donald Trump believes any longer, as Jonathan is just mentioning, from the rhetoric that he's giving not just to those troops in Japan, but the speech to the military generals, the way he talks to reporters, how he refers to what's happening in Venezuela. It sounds like he wants to be the arbiter of everything around the world.
Well, he's unconstrained.
And I think when you take that presentation aboard the carrier in Tokyo Bay, which sounded unhinged and was cringeworthy, and had the Japanese new woman prime minister present while the troops are chanting USA, it was bellicose. It was resonating with those young sailors. That's the other thing. There is a widespread feeling among some in the military to push back against what they considered woke strictures on the armed forces. So we ought to be concerned about this. If that speech in Tokyo aboard a carrier had been made by a military officer, he would have been canned and court-martialed for violation of politicization of the military. So we got a real problem. This message is being heard, and people are responding to Trump's rhetoric.
All right, General Jonathan. Sorry, gentlemen, I gotta cut it close.
Thanks so much for watching.
So, Stephen Miller, Kristi Noem, Marco Rubio, and other regime officials are all moving into housing on military bases, as reported by The Atlantic. The article talks about them displacing generals and the prestige of living on base, but I want to point out that they are all running to secure locations. That means that they feel the threat of civil unrest is so high that they need to hide away on a base protected by military police. I think this is another canary indicator for you as to how bad things are about to get. Because 42 million people are about to lose their most basic lifeline, their SNAP benefits that allows them to buy food. Remember, when the big stupid bill passed, I said we're going to see a huge uptick in this stochastic violence by people who are just out of hope. And that's what we have seen, an increase in political violence, an increase in random mass shootings. And the damage of the Republican bill hasn't even taken effect yet. Now we are about to see their effects taking place. First, it's everyone losing their food benefits, not being able to eat. It's all the federal employees that are working right now, not getting paid. Next year, millions are going to be paying hundreds to thousands more per month for their health insurance. I wish I had something good to say. I wish I had something positive to leave you with, but I don't. It's going to get worse. That's why these regime officials are moving to their secure military bases, because they're in the driver's seat and they know that they are about to drive us off the cliff. And my message for everyone who's about to get royally fucked, remember, it is the billionaires and all of their enablers in this regime who are causing the pain. Remember that.
Trump just threatened to send now multiple branches of the military to U.S. cities against their will. Because yesterday, Trump delivered an hour-long rambling speech before U.S. troops in Japan, during which he spent a lot of time bragging about his achievements. And at one point, he was discussing all the cities that he thinks are crime-ridden and how his deployment of the National Guard in those places has made them perfect crime-free utopias, with him then going on to say,
People don't care. If we send in our military, if we send in our National Guard, if we send in Space Command, they don't care who the hell it is. They just want to be safe. We have cities that are troubled. We can't have cities that are troubled. And we're sending in our National Guard. And if we need more than the National Guard, we'll send more than the National Guard, because we're going to have safe cities. We're not going to have people killed in our cities. And whether people like that or not, that's what we're doing.
Now, with that, Trump did not elaborate, but when questioned about his comments during a press gaggle on Air Force One today, we saw this.
What did you say last night when you said you were prepared to send more than the National Guard into American cities?
Sure, I would do that if it was necessary. If it was necessary to do that, but it hasn't been necessary. We're doing a great job without that. It was necessary. As you know, I'm allowed to do that.
Do you need other branches of the military you would send in, or?
Who are you with?
The New York Times.
That's very good. Very good. Well, if you're right incorrectly, I'll give you the answer. But, I want to enact a certain act. I'm allowed to do it routinely, and whether about 50% of presidents have used that, as you know, and I'd be allowed to do whatever I want. But we haven't chosen to do that because we're doing very well without it. But I'd be allowed to do that, you understand? And the courts wouldn't get involved, nobody would get involved, and I could send the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, I could send anybody I wanted.
I'm sorry I let him talk to you unattended for so long. So, a few things to break down. So first of all, the act that he's referencing appears to be the Insurrection Act, right? It's that centuries-old statute that allows the president to deploy active duty troops for civil policing purposes when there is a rebellion or widespread public unrest. And specifically, the act allows the president to send in those troops when a state government requests it, or if the president declares that the unrest is obstructing the enforcement of federal law. And if you watch the show or you've paid attention to the news, you're familiar at this point. Trump has floated this idea over and over again. But, very key thing, he is wrong or lying or was lied to and is just regurgitating that that this is something that's been routinely used by about 50% of presidents. In all of our history, it's been used by just 17 presidents, so you're talking about 37%, but also the act has only been invoked 30 times, so it's not common, especially in modern times. In fact, it's only been used 3 times in the last half a century. And the last time it was used at all was more than 30 years ago during the Rodney King riots. So if Trump did decide to pull the trigger, it would be absolutely massive.
Why are Trump officials moving into military bases and out of their homes?
Trump administration officials are moving into military housing, costing U.S. taxpayers millions of dollars a year because they say they're afraid. Even as 42 million Americans are trying to figure out how to feed their children, Trump administration officials are spending millions of dollars a year in your taxpayer money because they're afraid. And in Stephen Miller's case, who was one of the most recent to move onto a military base with 24/7 security because he was fearing for his life and his family's safety because his neighbors were writing chalk messages to him on the sidewalk, a public sidewalk, not even his driveway, a public sidewalk outside his house. Same with Russell Voigt. Same with Pete Hegseth. And same with Kristi Noem. They've all moved on to military bases, and there's dozens more. Pretty much, if you work in the White House and people know where you live, Donald Trump is approving you to move on to a military base so you don't have to be confronted by U.S. citizens who you answer to and who you work for the atrocities you're committing in this country, to the tune of millions of dollars a year. Even as people go hungry, even as people are fearful how they're going to provide for their families, these people are fleecing America because they're afraid over chalk messages on a sidewalk.
Y'all, I tell you what, we shall see what happens over these next few weeks because I think it's about to get interesting up in here. See, they could also be running there because there's something about to happen that they did not tell the general public. Because what they're trying to put out there, y'all, sounds vague. Oh, just for their safety, they're going to go, well, no, it's got to be something else that we're not seeing on the surface that they know to the point where they can flee to a military base and hide out there like some little scared something. And, and then when the cameras are rolling, they back to their little tough talk. What a joke. What a joke this administration is. Now, if they're scared, how are they supposed to protect the country, y'all? If something happened right now, how are these scared individuals going to protect the country? Please. Donald Trump, you and your whole administration should be fired. All of you. Totally incompetent. So, y'all, I still say I think it's Three-Eye Atlas and a lot of things. That's why everybody's turning their cameras off. And I found out yesterday China switched off some other probe they had up there. They switched it off. Yeah, you're switching it off because you're scared of what you're seeing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, not so tough after all. So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude because I got to end my Shabbat. And I know many of you do as well, especially if you're on the East Coast because it's already dark here. So I will see you tomorrow. Be on the lookout for my upcoming videos and Shabbat Shalom, family.